The signal had been calling for 200 years, and no one had answered it. When Elias Vaughn finally heard it, humanity's future quietly changed forever. Elias was not a hero. He was a mechanic who repaired broken ships on the edge of mapped space, where old machines went to die. His small salvage craft drifted through an asteroid field, its engines humming softly as he scanned for metal worth selling. Work like this was slow and lonely, but Elias preferred it that way. Machines were honest. They either worked or they didn't. People were harder to understand. That day was supposed to be routine. His scanner picked up a weak distress beacon buried deep inside a large asteroid. At first, Elias almost ignored it. Old beacons were common. Most led to wreckage already stripped clean by other salvagers. But something about this signal bothered him. The frequency was ancient, older than modern navigation standards. Curious, he adjusted his course. As he approached, the signal grew stronger. His computer struggled to identify it, finally displaying a date that made him sit up straight. The beacon had been active for nearly 2 centuries. Elias frowned. No power source should have lasted that long. He landed on the asteroid and began cutting through the rock with his laser rig. The work took hours. Dust floated around him in slow clouds, illuminated by the harsh white light of his tools. Finally, the rock gave way, opening into a massive hollow chamber hidden inside the asteroid. Elias floated forward, and froze. A ship rested in the darkness. It was enormous. Larger than any civilian vessel he had ever seen, its surface scarred by time but still intact. Faded paint stretched across the hull, barely visible under layers of dust. The name was almost erased, but he could still read it. Resolute Horizon. Elias felt a chill run down his spine. The name was familiar. The Resolute Horizon had disappeared during humanity's early expansion into deep space. Thousands of settlers had been aboard. The loss had become a mystery taught in history lessons. No wreckage had ever been found. Until now. He guided his craft through an open docking bay. Lights flickered on as he entered, reacting to movement after centuries of silence. The ship still had power. That alone made no sense. Reactors failed. Systems broke down. Time destroyed everything. But not here. The air inside was thin but breathable. His boots clicked softly against the metal floor as he stepped out. The corridors were clean. Too clean. There were no signs of panic, no damage, no bodies. It looked as if the crew had simply left in an orderly line and never returned. Elias moved deeper into the ship, his curiosity growing stronger than his caution. The further he went, the stranger things became. Reinforced bulkheads lined sections that should have been civilian quarters. Hidden weapon mounts were built into the walls. Shield emitters far more advanced than anything from that era were fused into the structure. Someone had changed this ship. It was no longer a colony vessel. It had been turned into something else. Eventually, Elias reached what must have been the command deck. The doors opened with a slow mechanical sigh. Inside, everything remained untouched. Chairs sat neatly in place. Displays waited in silence. On the central console rested a small sealed container. Inside was a handwritten note. Paper was rare in space. Seeing it here felt almost unreal. Elias opened the case carefully, afraid the fragile sheet might crumble. The handwriting was steady, deliberate, written by someone who knew their words might be the last thing they left behind. To whoever finds this ship, you are not here by accident. Elias read slowly, his heartbeat quickening. The message explained that the crew had discovered something during their journey, something impossible. Humanity was not alone, and worse, it had been watched long before reaching the stars. An ancient group of alien civilizations had been guiding younger species, preventing them from becoming threats. They did not conquer openly. They interfered quietly. Accidents. Disappearances. Collapses that pushed civilizations back whenever they advanced too far. The writer claimed humanity had already been stopped several times without realizing it. The crew of the Resolute Horizon had found proof after encountering a damaged alien vessel. They had studied its technology and learned the truth. Instead of continuing their colony mission, they transformed their ship into a hidden weapon. Not to attack, but to prepare humanity for the day the Watchers returned. At the bottom of the note were coordinates. And a warning. When they return, humanity must be ready to stand together. We hid this ship so the future would have a chance we did not. Elias lowered the note slowly. His mind raced. It sounded impossible. Like paranoia written by people trapped too long in space. Then the ship came alive. Screens across the command deck flickered on. A calm artificial voice filled the room, speaking words that had waited 200 years to be heard. Welcome, Finder. Timeline update. Intervention cycle approaching. Estimated arrival window, 4 months. Elias felt the air leave his lungs. This was not history. It was a countdown. He stared out through the command deck window at the silent stars. Somewhere out there, something ancient believed humanity was nothing more than a crop to be managed. Something that thought humans would always stay weak, divided, and predictable. Elias was just a mechanic. He knew that. But humans had survived ice ages, wars, and extinction events. They built cities in deserts and machines that crossed the void between stars. They solved problems because giving up had never been an option. He folded the note carefully and slipped it into his pocket. The resolute horizon had waited 2 centuries for someone to find it. And for the first time, Elias understood why. Humanity was about to be tested again. This time, someone finally knew the rules of the game. Elias did not sleep after the ship spoke to him. The words repeated in his mind again and again. 4 months. That was not enough time for governments to argue, for committees to investigate, or for humanity to slowly accept a new truth. Whatever was coming had already begun moving. The resolute horizon felt different now. It no longer seemed like an abandoned relic. It felt like something waiting to wake up. Systems quietly powered on as Elias walked through the corridors, responding to his presence as if the ship itself had decided he belonged there. Lights followed him, doors opened before he touched them, and old displays flickered back to life after centuries of silence. He returned to the command deck and began searching the ship's database. At first, most files were locked behind encryption protocols older than modern systems. But the ship's artificial intelligence adapted quickly, recognizing him as the new authorized user. One by one, hidden archives unlocked. What Elias found made his hands tremble. The alien group mentioned in the note called themselves caretakers in their own language, though human translations labeled them as gardeners. They believed intelligent life needed guidance. According to their records, young civilizations always destroyed themselves if left alone. War, overpopulation, uncontrolled technology, the pattern repeated across thousands of species. So the gardeners intervened. They caused setbacks when civilizations advanced too quickly. They slowed progress, removed dangerous discoveries, and shaped history from the shadows. Their goal, according to their own philosophy, was balance. But the results told a different story. Species that accepted their help never became independent again. They relied on gardener technology, gardener medicine, gardener protection. Over time, they stopped innovating. They stopped dreaming. Entire civilizations became safe, stable, and permanently weak. Humanity had resisted without even knowing it. The files showed failed interventions stretching back centuries. A research station explosion that delayed faster-than-light travel. A sudden economic collapse that halted a unified space program. A mysterious plague that erased an entire Martian settlement. Each event carefully engineered to slow human progress. Elias leaned back in the captain's chair, staring at the screen. Every tragedy humanity had struggled through might not have been random at all. The realization made him angry in a quiet, steady way. Humans had fought through those disasters. They rebuilt. They adapted. Every time they were pushed back, they came forward stronger. The gardeners had mistaken resilience for luck. That mistake might save them. A new file appeared on the screen, marked Priority Directive. Elias opened it. A recorded message played, showing the tired face of the Resolute Horizon's final captain. The man looked older than his years, his eyes heavy with responsibility. "We could not defeat them," the captain said calmly. But we learned something important. They do not understand humans. They believe fear creates obedience. They believe loss creates surrender. They do not understand that humans become more dangerous when cornered. The message explained that the crew had not hidden only one ship. Using stolen alien technology and secret shipyards, they had constructed multiple vessels across human space. Each one concealed in remote locations, waiting for discovery if the worst happened. 12 ships in total. A hidden fleet. Elias felt hope spark for the first time since reading the note. One ship was not enough to challenge an ancient alliance. But 12 ships, built with alien technology and human creativity, might at least give humanity a chance. The coordinates appeared on screen. Before he could study them further, alarms suddenly echoed through the ship. Elias jumped to his feet. Sensors had detected a vessel entering the asteroid field. It moved slowly, scanning methodically. Not a salvage ship. Its movements were too precise. Someone else was searching. Elias shut down external lights and powered down non-essential systems. The resolute horizon faded back into silence, hidden once more inside the asteroid's hollow shell. He watched the sensor display carefully as the unknown ship drifted closer. Minutes passed like hours. The vessel paused near the asteroid, scanning again. Elias held his breath. If the gardeners already knew about this ship, everything would end before it even began. Then the ship moved on. Only after its signal disappeared did Elias realize how tightly his fists were clenched. The warning in the note had been real. The gardeners were already watching. He understood then that secrecy mattered more than anything else. If humanity learned the truth too soon, panic would spread. And if the wrong people learned it first, the gardeners might erase the threat before it grew. This could not be a government mission. It had to start small. Elias searched his contacts, thinking of people who lived outside official systems. Pilots who asked few questions. Engineers who liked impossible problems. People who trusted actions more than authority. There was one name he kept returning to. Lena Orloff. She had once been a military navigator before disappearing into independent freight work after refusing to follow an order she believed would cost innocent lives. She was stubborn, intelligent, and very hard to scare. Exactly the kind of person he needed. Elias sent a short encrypted message with coordinates to a neutral meeting zone far from trade routes. He did not explain anything. Some truths were safer shown than told. While waiting, he began preparing the ship. The AI guided him through basic systems, teaching him controls designed for a full crew. The weapons were unlike anything he had seen. They did not rely purely on power, but on precision, targeting weaknesses in shields and structure rather than overwhelming force. Human thinking applied to alien technology. Improvisation instead of perfection. Days later, a small transport ship appeared at the meeting coordinates. Lena stepped aboard the resolute horizon with suspicion written across her face. That expression slowly faded as Elias showed her the ship, the archives, and finally the note. She read it twice before speaking. "If this is real," she said quietly, "then humanity's been living inside someone else's experiment." Elias nodded. Lena looked around the massive command deck, then back at him. Fear was there, but something else too. Determination. "So," she said, crossing her arms, "what's the plan?" Elias looked at the star map displaying the hidden fleet's coordinates. 12 ships scattered across space, waiting for someone brave enough, or foolish enough, to wake them. "The plan," he said slowly, "is to make sure humans stop being managed." Outside the asteroid, the stars burned silently. Somewhere among them, ancient watchers prepared for another quiet correction. They did not yet realize that humanity had already changed the equation. And humans, once they understood the game, had a habit of rewriting the rules. The first rule Elias and Lena agreed on was simple. Stay invisible. The gardeners had survived for tens of thousands of years because no one ever saw them coming. Humanity's only chance was to do the same. The resolute horizon left the asteroid silently, its engines bending light around the hull as alien stealth systems activated. Elias still did not fully understand how the technology worked, but he understood its purpose. The ship did not overpower enemies. It avoided being noticed at all. That alone told him how dangerous the gardeners must be. The next set of coordinates led them far beyond common trade routes, into a region of space most pilots avoided. A dead system circled a fading red star, its planet stripped of resources long ago. Nothing valuable remained there, which made it the perfect hiding place. As they approached the outer orbit, the ship's sensors began to react. A faint signal answered their arrival, old but active. Something was waiting. The second ship revealed itself slowly, emerging from behind the shadow of a shattered moon. Like the Resolute Horizon, it carried human design mixed with alien engineering. Its hull was darker, reinforced, shaped more for combat than exploration. Lena let out a slow breath. They really built an entire fleet. Elias nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle deeper onto his shoulders. Each ship represented people who had sacrificed their lives preparing for a future they would never see. Now that future had arrived. Boarding the second vessel took hours. Systems needed to be restarted carefully to avoid broadcasting power spikes that could be detected from afar. When the lights finally came on, the ship's AI greeted them with the same calm message. Awaiting authorized command. It felt less like discovering machines and more like waking sleeping giants. Over the next weeks, Elias and Lena followed the coordinates one by one. Some ships were hidden inside drifting ice fields. Others were buried beneath asteroid crust or disguised as abandoned mining stations. Each discovery brought new challenges. Frozen systems had to be repaired. Damaged reactors needed creative solutions. More than once, Elias relied on improvisation rather than manuals, adapting tools meant for salvage work into solutions no engineer had planned. That was something the gardeners had never understood. Humans rarely built perfect systems. They built systems that could survive being broken. With every ship they recovered, their confidence grew, but so did the danger. Strange signals began appearing at the edges of sensor range. Unknown probes passed through nearby systems, scanning briefly before disappearing. Once, an automated mining colony suddenly shut down communications after their arrival. Someone was searching back. They needed more people. Lena reached out carefully to old contacts she trusted. Not soldiers or officials, but survivors. A former rescue pilot who refused to abandon civilians during a station evacuation. A programmer who once exposed corporate sabotage and disappeared afterward. An engineer known for fixing impossible problems using scrap parts and stubbornness alone. One by one, they arrived. None of them believed the full story at first. But standing inside ships built 2 centuries ago with technology humanity officially did not possess changed minds quickly. Fear spread through the growing crew, but so did something stronger, purpose. For the first time, Elias noticed a pattern. These people were not chosen because they were the best. They were chosen because they refused to quit. The hidden fleet slowly came alive. 3 ships became 5. 5 became 7. Each one added new capabilities. Some specialized in defense, others in long-range scanning or electronic warfare. Captain Rivera's plan had been careful and patient. No single ship was powerful enough to threaten the gardeners alone. Together, they formed something unpredictable. Human strength had never been about individual perfection. It came from cooperation. During one long shift, Elias studied recovered gardener data with the fleet's growing technical team. The more they learned, the clearer the weakness became. The gardeners relied on certainty. Their strategies were built on probability and control. They predicted outcomes based on past behavior. Humans did not behave predictably. Humans argued, improvised, took risks, and made irrational choices driven by hope as much as logic. To the gardeners, that chaos looked like weakness. To Elias, it looked like an advantage. Then the archive systems delivered new information. An intercepted transmission confirmed the worst fear. The intervention timeline had moved forward again. The gardeners had detected unusual activity among human shipping routes. They suspected technological advancement beyond expected levels. The culling would begin in less than 2 months. Silence filled the command deck as the message ended. Even the most optimistic members of the crew understood what that meant. They did not have enough ships. Not enough people. Not enough time. For a moment, doubt spread through the fleet. Elias felt it too. He was still just a mechanic. He had never commanded anything larger than a repair crew. Now dozens of people looked to him for answers against an enemy older than human civilization itself. That night, he walked alone through the corridors of the Resolute Horizon. The ship hummed softly around him, alive again after centuries of waiting. He stopped in front of the preserved message left by the original captain. They knew they would not win, Elias realized. They built these ships anyway. Not because victory was guaranteed, but because giving the future a chance mattered more than certainty. The realization steadied him. The next morning, Elias gathered the fleet leaders. Fear still lingered in their expressions, but so did determination. "We don't beat them by being stronger," he said simply. "We beat them by being human." The plan that followed was risky, almost reckless. Instead of hiding, they would make the gardeners look in the wrong place. Human ships across nearby systems would begin unusual but harmless activity patterns, increased trade routes, false research signals, scattered energy signatures. Noise. Confusion. Enough to overload the careful predictions the gardeners depended on. While the Watchers chased ghosts, the hidden fleet would continue preparing. It was not a military strategy. It was misdirection, creativity, and stubborn defiance. Very human solutions. As the fleet moved into position, Elias looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, ancient civilizations believed humanity was still a manageable problem. They were about to learn something new. Humans did not grow the way other species did. The more pressure they faced, the more dangerous they became. The gardeners reacted faster than Elias expected. Within days of the fleet spreading false signals across nearby systems, strange movements began appearing on long-range scanners. Ships that did not match any known human or allied design slipped through space like shadows. They did not attack. They observed. They measured. They waited. The gardeners were trying to understand what had changed. That alone told Elias the plan was working. Human activity across several systems became chaotic by design. Independent traders altered routes. Old mining stations suddenly restarted dormant reactors. Research buoys transmitted meaningless data bursts. To an outside observer, it looked like humanity had entered a phase of rapid, uncontrolled expansion. In truth, it was noise. Carefully crafted confusion. The hidden fleet remained silent behind it all. Inside the Resolute Horizon, the atmosphere had changed. The crew no longer felt like salvagers and refugees. They were becoming something else, a team with purpose. Engineers worked alongside pilots, programmers argued with navigators, and soldiers trained people who had never held weapons before. Every person contributed something different. Every solution came from cooperation rather than command. That was another thing the gardeners had never predicted. They expected hierarchy, control, clear chains of authority. Human cooperation was messier than that. Ideas came from everywhere. The youngest crew member could solve a problem veterans missed. Arguments led to better plans instead of division. Humanity's strength was not order. It was adaptability. Still, time was running out. Long-range sensors finally detected the first confirmed Gardener vessel entering human-controlled space. It was enormous, dwarfing anything humans had built openly. Its structure looked almost organic, its surface shifting slowly as if alive. The ship did not fire weapons or send messages. Entire colonies reported sudden system failures instead, communications outages, navigation errors, power fluctuations. The culling had begun. Fear spread quickly through human networks. News channels blamed technical failures. Governments argued. No one understood that it was only the opening move. Elias watched the reports in silence. He knew what came next. Panic, confusion, and collapse. The same pattern repeated across countless civilizations before humanity ever reached the stars. Unless something changed. The fleet gathered in deep space, hidden between sensor shadows cast by a gas giant. 9 ships now stood ready. 3 were still missing, their locations unknown or already compromised. It was not the fleet Captain Rivera had hoped for, but it was all they had. Lena studied the tactical displays, her expression calm but tense. "If we attack directly, we lose," she said. "They're older, faster, and better armed." Elias nodded. That had never been the plan. Humans rarely won by being stronger. They won by changing the situation entirely. The technical teams had spent weeks studying Gardner systems recovered from old archives. The aliens relied heavily on centralized coordination. Their ships shared data constantly, predicting threats through shared intelligence. It made them efficient, but also dependent on certainty. So Elias proposed something the Gardners would never expect. Instead of destroying their ships, humanity would make them blind. The fleet divided into small groups, each assigned to disrupt communication relays rather than engage directly. Electronic interference, false signals, and targeted system overloads replaced conventional weapons. The goal was not victory in battle. The goal was confusion. When the operation began, it worked almost immediately. Gardner ships began reacting unpredictably. Some withdrew to reassess threats that did not exist. Others moved to defend empty regions of space. Their perfect coordination fractured under conflicting data streams. For the first time in 50,000 years, the Gardners faced uncertainty. Human pilots pushed their ships harder than recommended, weaving through asteroid fields and gas clouds where larger alien vessels struggled to maneuver. Engineers modified systems mid-flight, turning mining equipment into signal disruptors. Every success came from improvisation rather than design. The Gardners adapted slowly. They were powerful, but cautious. They did not understand why humans refused to behave logically. A weaker species should have hidden or surrendered. Instead, humans spread out and multiplied the problem. Then came the moment everything changed. One of the Gardner vessels finally engaged directly, targeting a small human colony near the edge of known space. Its weapons disabled orbital defenses within seconds. The message was clear: resistance would be punished. Elias made a decision that terrified everyone in the command room. The Resolute Horizon jumped in alone. The battle was short and chaotic. The alien ship outmatched them in raw power, its weapons tearing through shields faster than expected. Warning alarms filled the bridge as systems failed one after another. For a moment, it seemed the Gardners would prove their superiority once again. Then human unpredictability struck. Instead of retreating, Elias ordered the ship closer. Too close for standard combat. The alien vessel hesitated, its targeting systems struggling to adjust to behavior outside expected patterns. In that brief moment of confusion, Lena executed a maneuver no tactical program would have recommended. Sliding the ship beneath the alien hull and releasing a concentrated interference burst directly into its communication core. The Gardner vessel went silent. Not destroyed. Disconnected. Without shared data, it withdrew automatically, retreating to regroup. The colony survived. Across human space, the story spread quickly. A single unknown ship had driven away an impossible enemy. Hope replaced fear. People began asking questions. Governments started coordinating instead of arguing. Humanity was waking up. Back aboard the Resolute Horizon, the crew celebrated quietly, exhaustion mixing with relief. They had not won. The Gardners would return stronger and more prepared. Everyone knew that. But something fundamental had changed. For the first time, the Gardners had failed. Elias stood alone on the observation deck, watching distant stars burn against the darkness. Humanity had spent centuries surviving disasters without knowing why they kept happening. Now they understood. And understanding changed everything. Humans were no longer running. They were learning how to fight back, not with superior power, but with creativity, cooperation, and refusal to accept limits placed by others. Somewhere beyond the edge of known space, ancient civilizations were re-evaluating their assumptions. The species they thought they were cultivating had just proven something dangerous. Humans did not grow quietly. When threatened, they evolved. The Gardners did not return immediately. That silence frightened Elias more than open conflict. Ancient civilizations did not panic. They observed, calculated, and adapted. Somewhere in the darkness, they were studying humanity again, trying to understand why the pattern had broken. For the first time in thousands of years, their predictions had failed. Across human space, rumors spread faster than official reports. Colonies shared stories of an unknown fleet protecting trade routes. Engineers exchanged strange data showing alien systems behaving unpredictably. Governments denied everything publicly, but quietly began preparing defenses. Humanity did what it always did when facing uncertainty. It talked, argued, and then slowly united. The hidden fleet remained invisible, moving between systems like ghosts. 9 ships were operational now, each crew pushed to exhaustion but driven by purpose. The remaining 3 ships were still missing, but Elias understood something important. The fleet was never meant to win through numbers alone. It was meant to buy time. And time was exactly what humanity needed. Archive data recovered from Gardner systems revealed their next move. The aliens were assembling a larger intervention force beyond the edge of mapped space. Not an invasion, but a correction on a scale humanity had never seen before. Entire technological networks would be disabled. Key leaders would disappear. Economic systems would collapse overnight. The same method that had worked on countless civilizations. Only this time, humanity knew it was coming. Elias gathered the fleet leaders in the command chamber of the Resolute Horizon. The room was quiet as the projection displayed incoming Gardner movements. The odds were impossible. Even with all 12 ships, they could not defeat such a force directly. But Elias no longer thought in terms of winning battles. He thought about changing outcomes. The Gardners don't want war, he said slowly. They want control. They believe they're protecting the galaxy from chaos. So we show them something worse than chaos. The others watched him carefully. We show them a species they can't control at all. The plan was risky, almost absurd. Instead of hiding the truth, humanity would reveal it. Carefully selected data about the Gardners' interference would be released across human networks. Not panic-inducing proof, but enough evidence to make people question their history. Scientists, engineers, and independent groups would begin searching for answers on their own. Human curiosity would do the rest. The Gardners could silence a few ships. They could erase isolated discoveries. But they could not stop billions of minds asking the same questions at once. Within weeks, the effect spread. Research stations began independently rediscovering suppressed technologies. Communication networks adapted to interference faster than expected. Civilian engineers created solutions no military strategist had considered. Humanity's greatest strength was finally unleashed, not weapons, but imagination. The Gardners arrived to find something unfamiliar. Resistance everywhere. Not organized rebellion, but uncontrolled growth. New ideas spreading faster than they could be contained. Every attempt to slow progress created 3 new solutions. Every disruption forced humans to innovate again. The Gardners' strategy depended on predictable reactions. Humans refused to remain predictable. The final confrontation came not as a battle, but as a meeting. A single massive Gardner vessel entered neutral space and transmitted a message directly to the hidden fleet. Elias and Lena stood on the command deck as the alien communication filled the screen. The being that appeared was tall and luminous, its form shifting slowly as if made from living light. Its voice carried calm certainty. "You have disrupted the balance," it said. "Your species advances too quickly. You risk destroying yourselves and others." Elias answered simply, "Maybe. But that choice belongs to us." The alien studied him for a long moment. "You are inefficient, divided, irrational." Elias allowed himself a small smile. "Yes. That's why we survive." He explained what humanity had become, a species that learned from failure instead of fearing it. A civilization that grew stronger through hardship. The Gardners believed control created stability. Humans believed freedom created progress. Neither side convinced the other completely. But the gardeners understood one thing clearly. Humanity could no longer be quietly managed. Any attempt at intervention would now trigger resistance across an entire species that knew it was being watched. The cost had become too high. The alien figure faded, leaving only a final message. We will observe. No further intervention at this time. It was not victory. It was something stranger. Recognition. Months later, the hidden fleet drifted together near the edge of human space. Repairs were underway. Crews laughed more easily now. Life slowly returned to something resembling normal. Humanity had not defeated an ancient power, but it had earned something just as important, the right to choose its own path. Elias stood alone on the observation deck, holding the original note that had started everything. 2 centuries ago, a crew had hidden their ship hoping someone in the future would be brave enough to act. They had been right. Humans were never the strongest species. They were not the oldest or the most advanced. But they possessed something rare, the ability to change when facing the impossible. The gardeners had tried to shape humanity like a crop. Instead, they had forced it to grow wild. Beyond the stars, unknown civilizations continued their silent watch. Some with curiosity, some with caution. Humanity had announced itself in the only way it knew how, not through conquest, but through defiance and creativity. And deep inside every human colony, station, and ship, a new understanding took root. The future would not be decided by ancient empires or careful plans. It would be decided by people willing to try, fail, and try again. Because humanity's greatest weapon had never been technology or fleets. It was the refusal to stop moving forward.